Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here for your next PB&J card class. In today's video, I'll be making a set of 3 cards. They are pretty much one-layer cards where I'm just enjoying the fun of stamping and sitting back and relaxing and coloring as time permitted within my schedule. So to do this, I'm using some stamps from Penny Black's new Bliss collection I think are so perfect for this sort of coloring book technique. This first one uses Gladsome and the sentiment from Delicate Garden. This next card, I've used the flowers from the transparent set Stitched Flowers, and the sentiment is from the transparent set Faith. And for the final card, I'm using the Slapstick Cling Stamp Burst of Blooms, and the sentiment is from the transparent set All Things Great. And just a note, a complete supply list will be at the very end of the video. This will include all the stamp numbers and names, inks, paper, colors, everything that I'm using to create the cards. So to begin, I'm going to stamp these using my stamp positioning tool. I'm using the Misty here, and I am inking them with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'm stamping onto Canson 140-pound watercolor paper. And because I'm working on this watercolor paper, it does have some texture to it. That's why I'm using the stamp positioning tool, so that I can restamp and make sure that I get a really good impression on that textured cardstock. One thing that's really great about these floral images that I've chosen to use today is that you can turn and position them on your card any direction that you want. They don't have a particular vertical or landscape orientation, and by turning and rotating them, they get a whole different look, and you can cover the entire background of the card. So my approach for creating these cards is really to pre-stamp all the backgrounds and then be able to go in and color them whenever I had a chance. I find coloring to be really relaxing, but I don't always get to it if I don't have something already stamped and ready to go. So I just went ahead and stamped all 3 of these ahead of time and had them throughout the week. I could sit down and just work on them a little bit whenever I had some time. I am just, excuse my head there, just making sure that I cover some of these open areas. Even if it's just a little touch of a leaf here or there, it does make a difference in the finished look of the card. Now my sentiment for this is from the transparent set Delicate Garden. This has some really pretty images if you like to color, but I especially love the sentiments, the faith, hope, and believe on these. They're just a great size and very uplifting. I wanted to create a set of 3 cards that could be used for any occasion, just to send to a friend for an uplifting note, or I could give this whole set to someone as a gift for them to send out. So that's the first card. For this next card, I am stamping my sentiment first, which I like to do sometimes when I'm working with these larger sentiments. So this sentiment is from the set called All Great Things. And again, just stamping it multiple times because I'm working on that thick textured watercolor paper. Now, the flowers I'm using are Burst of Blooms. I've used these for quite a few cards already. I just love this particular stamp for coloring in. There's so many different ways that you can color it in, and so many different ways you can position it on the card to give it a new look. Also, I'm kind of a lazy fussy cutter, and this is easy to fussy cut around. So if you wanted to cut out these flowers to give more dimension or arrange them in a different way, they're pretty easy to cut out. So it makes it a pretty versatile stamp. So here I'm working this just around the entire perimeter of the card. Along this left-hand edge, there'll be a little less of the flowers peeking through just because I wanted the sentiment there. And I encourage you, when you're stamping some of these images, don't be afraid to stamp them off the edge of your card. It really gives a whole different look to the stamped image, and just more options for using the stamp if you're just using a little bit hanging off the edge of the card. So here I'm just sneaking in a few more flowers along this side of the card. And there's something really fun about just stamping all of these in advance and letting your mind sort of just think about the stamping and then later just think about the coloring. For this final card, I'm using the sentiment from the set called Faith, and I'm stamping it right pretty much in the center. I'm eyeballing it here of the card, and then I'll work the flowers around that sentiment. These flowers are from the transparent set Stitched Flowers. This is a really versatile set, and this larger image from the set, again, is like the other two that I've used. You can turn and position it in many different directions, and it offers a lot of coloring options just because of the style of the stamp. So I did them on each side, and then I'm going to add a touch at the bottom and then another touch up here at the top. So for the video, I'm going to show you how I colored this card here, and the other two were colored using all of the same techniques. To color these, I'm using my Faber-Castell Design Memory Craft Art Grip Aquarelle watercolor pencils. I'm using 5 pencils. So for all of these cards, all I'm using are these 5 pencils to color them in. I wanted a coloring technique that was easy to do on the go and that I could easily stop and start as I was working on these. If I just had a few minutes to sit down and color, I could do that and then walk away and come back. This is also a very portable way to color, so I could have these in any room of the house, quickly grab them, move them. With a water brush, when I wasn't at my table recording, I could use a water brush to color, and I didn't even have to have a dish of water or anything going. My technique is to first color with the watercolor pencil where I want the darkest color to be. Then I go back in with paintbrush and water and blend that out. I put the paintbrush down on the white area and then work down into the area that I've colored. This allows the area that I've colored to sort of bleed out into the area where the water is applied and keeps that nice blending from light to dark, even just using one color. So you can see there I put the water in the open area, then work my way down and sort of let that water bleed out. I do, if my brush gets quite a bit of the color on it in between each petal, I do just kind of rinse it off as I need to. I did all of the flowers pink using that same technique, and then on these little berries or buds, I guess they would be, I decided to go with the orange. Probably not the perfect natural way to do it, but I just like picking colors that I like. Now on the leaves, I'm going to combine 2 different colors. So I'm using the green at the tips of the leaves, and then I'll come in with the turquoise on the stems and at the base of the leaves. And to blend that, I just put the water down in that open area. You can see where it's white in between, and sort of work my way down and then work my way up. Making sure not to totally blend the colors. I still want to see turquoise and green, but just sort of fill in that area in between. This is a really nice technique too for coloring flowers. You'll see on one of the other cards that I made, I did the orange at the center of the flower and the yellow at the tips of the flower and then blended them together. Now to add a little painting around the background, I'm using this yellow and I'm coloring just near the flowers. Again, where I want the darkest or highest concentration to be. If you struggle with painting watercolor backgrounds sort of around your images, this is a really nice technique. I feel like I have quite a bit more control when I do it this way. So I colored it in, then I put my water down with my paintbrush in the open area, the white area outside, and then sort of pull that color out and let the water do the work. You can see there I painted it, and then I just sort of work my way out into that area that has more water. When my hand goes off camera, I'm just rinsing off my brush and getting a little more water on it so that when I move to the next white area, I don't have anything on my brush. See there, I can come in and then work my way down and let that color sort of bleed out. The less water you use, the more control that you will have in how much that will bleed out. And once that was done, I decided to go back and add, I wanted a little bit more orange to tie into those little berry things. And so I'm adding that just to the center of the flowers. I just colored all the way around. It's a pretty small area, and then went back and blended it with water. I wasn't worried about getting any shading on this small area. It was more just having a touch of that orange color there. To add some splatters to the background, I'm just coloring with that orange watercolor pencil onto a scratch piece of watercolor paper, mixing in a bunch of water and then splattering it, hitting that paintbrush on my finger to splatter it. Now on all 3 cards, once they were totally dry, I did go back and add some vintage photo distress ink using an ink blending tool and a foam pad. I have a very light pressure with my hand as I'm applying this, but I felt like it gave it just an overall finished look and toned down some of the super bright colors. So here's a look at that finished card. The yellow photograph just a little bit brighter than it is in real life here. Here's the other card that I did, again, using all of the same techniques. And then the third card. And here's where you can see where I mixed the orange and the yellow on the flowers. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and give it a thumbs up. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll link to all of those down in the YouTube description box below. And if you stay tuned here at the end of the video, you will get the full supply list as promised.